Alumni Match is a project that we're undertaking based out of CI. And it's actually something that NU has previously done with the company MZ Burning Glass. And my trusty wingman, Brendan Geidel, is leading this project for us at this point, the implementation of it. But basically what this is a partnership with MZ Burning Glass to take our student records and connect them to their professional profiles database. 150 million professional profiles out there. And what this gives us is it returns to us a database for all of our learners, past, present, with all the information that is consolidated in those professional profiles. So things like job history, you think about things that are included in LinkedIn profiles, that kind of content. And so this gives us the ability to actually be quite transparent and accountable in evaluating ourselves in terms of the outcomes that our learners go on to enjoy in their careers. Because we get actual data about actual individuals who have gone on to have actual jobs. We have job titles, we have occupation codes, we have skills, we can estimate salary ranges. And so we can bring a lot of information about individuals and then aggregate those insights to provide some insight into what is happening to people who graduate from programs and from the institution as a whole. So I thought I'd show you all a little bit of existing data that we have on this. This is just NU data that was generated 3 years ago. This project will update the data for all NU and all NCU students. And we generally hope for about a 50% match rate. That would be pretty decent. Where 50% of our records we're able to get decent data back on. For comparison, most institutions track this kind of information through surveys, often phone surveys of their alumni. And if you're getting a 10% response rate, you are crushing it. So to get data on up to 50% of our alumni going back potentially decades, it's a pretty amazing data resource. So, what kinds of things are we looking at? So if we start high, we can actually look at an overall school summary. You can see I can pick programs here, but let's just look at the overall institution. Matched almost 22,000 alumni. Employed in field, this is an indication of how many people are working in an occupation that is considered in field for the program that they started in. Sometimes this is helpful, particularly for certain kinds of programs. A lot of programs are designed to empower people to work in all manner of fields. So this can be a bit of a fuzzy indicator. But you can see we can get things like estimated wages as an average for somebody who graduates from, this is for National U, potential wages. This looks at where they might head through their careers. These wages are estimated using things like location, age as a proxy for where they might be in their career stages, those sorts of indicators. And this ties back to occupational wages that are produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is a bit of a messy figure, but I'll show you a cleaner version. This shows you, what we have for data from all of these programs, and then the occupations that we have records of people going off to work in. Top occupations. So interestingly, the most, the highest percentage occupation that we have for our alumni is actually chief executive, over thousands of those. You can see managers, general operations managers, post-secondary teachers, goes all the way down. And these are actual records of actual individuals, their current jobs. We can also look at job titles. So it gets to a much more specific level. Job titles are a much more refined indicator than an occupation. We can see what companies they're working for. and then skills. Now, bear in mind, this is aggregated across the entire institution. So let's say we want to actually look at a specific program. So I don't know, let's pick BBA. So this gives us an overview of all the records that were tagged with a BBA program. These would be tagged by us. We matched 2,751 alumni. We see almost 80% are employed in field, 62% in region. I would have to go back and look at the original analysis to see if this is referring to California as in region or the nation. But again, we have wage data. This is an estimated average based on where people are in their careers at the moment. And then potential is tied to career span and age and that sort of shifted average.
Stuart,
yep.
There's a question. What's an example of an unclassified occupation?
So an unclassified occupation is an occupation that the machine learning algorithms over at MZ can't tag a specific occupation. So if you think about somebody's resume or somebody's LinkedIn profile, it will have a job title and information about the job. And so MZ's AI tools will analyze that profile data and will try to tag its best estimate of what that job corresponds to as an occupation. And generally, it can tag an occupation, but sometimes it can't. Sometimes the job description, the job title, the mixture of the job title and the skills and the education, which are all used in this tagging process, is just too vague or too sparse. The data are too sparse for an actual occupation to be tagged, at which case it would be tagged as an unclassified occupation. So here you can see that we have these 2,750 BBA alumni. We have records of them working in all of these different current occupations. And all of these occupations are associated with national statistics around occupational growth projections, earnings, all that kind of information. And you can see this listed out here just as a table. Same thing with job titles. And it gets a lot more detailed. So the data that we would get back, this is an interface that MZ provides that can be just used and navigated fairly easily. But we actually retain the full data. And so we can generate our own dashboards and Tableau and distribute those across the system and do our own research into our alumni and what's happened to them since graduating or since not graduating. We can also get data for people that enrolled at NU but never actually graduated, and we can see what they've gone on to do and maybe glean something about why they left before graduating.
So
company data is really helpful for identifying who prospective industry partners can be.
Sorry, Stuart, real quick, just because there was a question about, how to access this tool, and I think you just answered it, which is we have a limited number of licenses we can access directly to MZ Burning Glass. But as Stuart's describing, we're going to be pulling in the same data, and then they're going to be able to make it accessible to all of you in dashboard form later, not immediately. What's the timeline on this, Stuart, you're thinking?
The match will hopefully be done by June, if the data wrangling on our end isn't too time consuming, conservatively June. And then what we do with that beyond depends on how we prioritize. But we can, the new match will automatically come with this kind of interface. And so if there are certain groups across the system that would like access to this tool, we can make that happen. We have a finite number of licenses, but as an example at NU, Kim Levy's team would be using this as part of their program review data collection process. So we have enough licenses to be able to share access if there are groups who want to dive in and play in this data themselves. See, we can look at skills, get a sense of, all right, individuals who've graduated from these programs, they list all of these skills on their profiles. So what does that tell us about the kinds of skills that they think are really important in their jobs? We can then align these skills that they say they have with skills that we think they may have gained from going through our programs. Are there skill gaps that we could glean from that might tell us about skills we might want to incorporate into our program? Just a lot of interesting grist to grind. Where are our alumni nationwide? Again, this is all for alumni from the BBA program. Down to the city level, what years did they graduate? So a lot of pretty amazing data. And what's presented here is really just a presentation of the data. There's a lot that can still be done in terms of actually post-processing the data and trying to glean insights and try to weave this into our processes, how we think about our programs and review our programs and use these data to inform how we try to improve our programs. And also, I think quite helpful for our faculty to see how these programs translate into actual real lives, right? What you're seeing here is just one job. The actual data that we can get back, or that we do get back, allows us to look at career trajectories. Did people have jobs before they joined us? And did they have a certain sequence of jobs after they graduated? What does that tell us about career pathways? It's an immense resource for doing that kind of research and analysis, but also just grounds our efforts in actual real outcomes for individuals. We can see what people have gone on to do. And it's quite amazing to have all those stories and to be able to use them for recruitment purposes. Something I didn't dive into there, but there's another tool that you might have seen there on that homepage called Go Recruit. It's a function that we can extract statistics out of that match and create graphics that we can input onto our program web pages and actually present data about our program outcomes on our program websites that can give people some insights into what actual outcomes have been. And so we still have those individual stories, which have always been an important part of recruitment, those great stories that we know about certain alumni, but now we can really complement that with aggregate data. You know, we're not just trying to sell the highlighted story, you know, that one alumni who's gone on to do that great thing that everybody always uses that story, wonderful story, but we can actually also show robust data that tells us, look, you don't have to be that one person who got that great job at NASA and is the exemplar for our program. Look at what a likely outcome is for you, what salary ranges, what job opportunities. It just really brings it all down to earth. So that's something that's coming down the pipeline, and pretty exciting data, I think, that we can really do a lot of cool things with. If you're interested in getting access to the data, let me know, and we will make a plan to give those of you who are interested in playing in it access. And we have our own plans to make it a ubiquitous thing that we can share system-wide for any and all programs.
Yeah, just to emphasize what you just shared, Stuart, we can actually, you can do really, really interesting things with this data. I'll just show you one quick example. I did this for the Harvard Business Review when the pandemic hit, and we were looking at people's shifts from out of retail, hospitality, and transportation. And the challenge, right, is that millions and millions of people were stuck. We didn't have a way to actually figure out how to assess their transferable skills and port them into a different industry. But if you actually look at the data, there are ways to do this. So as an example, so I was using the MZ data and just looking at career shifts between people leaving retail and customer service and moving into a different pathway, and who stayed and who went into a pretty different kind of field and what kinds of outcomes did they have. And you can do this where you look at how, you know, like one good job to another, where they're staying at least maybe 90 days. And what's neat is those anomalous pathways that sometimes we tend to uphold is like, oh, isn't it great that someone moved into PR, but how? You know, like what were the skills that they actually acquired? And you can actually backwards map and see, ooh, like 50% of these folks actually acquired these skills along the way. And it helps us, you know, take a look at some of these really exciting pathways for folks who are moving into maybe business analysis, very small numbers of people who are actually making these really interesting transitions. But how do we make it more easily navigable for people to understand that actually you can take those skills, add on a few more skills, and make this jump to another pathway? Same thing, you can do this really for any industry, any kind of job, right? Transportation, how did they move into sales? What kind of sales skills did they acquire along the way? How did they move into marketing and advertising and PR? And so it's really, what Stuart's sharing is just really exciting, what we will be able to do more of in the future. There was one question, Stuart, around military. Is there a category for military students, active duty, retired, branch of service, that kind of stuff?
So that depends on us providing that as a variable. So we have asked for that as one of our pieces so that we can filter the data for veterans, for instance, and really look at what they have gone on to do, as opposed to civilian learners. So yes, and this is one of the sort of powerful things about doing this in partnership with MZ is, we have the really outstanding, or the truly accurate and precise data on the exact program that somebody went through. Any information about those individuals that we might track as an institution, their veteran status, their demographics, their financial status, any of that kind of stuff. And anything that we can bring to that, we can then connect to all of these outcomes. On that side, on the MZ side of things, they don't really have that kind of access, right? So it's difficult to do that kind of analysis without partnering with a specific institution, because they're forced to try and tag zip codes based on what somebody has written as the degree that they got. And the tagging of occupation codes is actually pretty darn good. The machine learning is very sophisticated now. The tagging of job titles is even better. The tagging of programs can be very messy. And so that's a real limitation that folks just working in the profiles data world by itself have to deal with. It's very difficult to tie it back to programs specifically. But we have all of that very exact program data from our internal records. And so we really get to unleash ourselves on these data. And we can make these data available to any faculty who want to do research, right? CI is a pretty limited team at the moment, and there's a lot of great ideas that we have bouncing around our heads that if there are faculty who want to do some research and publish some stuff, this data is a gold mine. So hit me up.
Awesome.